Steve Wilks said, "Don't make me turn this tank around." Julian Council from On Panthers with us tonight. Julian, Carolina beating Brady and the Bucs 21-3 because, well, of course they did.
You didn't expect this? You didn't see this coming?
Did not have. Yeah, maybe I should have bet on it.
So this is surprising to you, a team that's been, with a bunch of turmoil. Matt Rule no longer here, getting rid of Phil Snow as well, trading Christian McCaffrey last Thursday. This is a surprising result. You didn't see it happening. It's one of the most inexplicable wins I've ever seen the Carolina Panthers have. And I'm not saying that because I'm upset that they won. I think it's a great thing that they were able to go out there against a divisional opponent in Tampa Bay who they have not been competitive against the last 2 years under Matt Rule. And they didn't just beat them. They dominated this game, and it's impressive. A 21-3 win at home, first win for Steve Wilks as the interim head coach in Carolina. I think the fans really could be excited about the Panthers finally getting a win. And when you look at the state of the division, they're kind of in this thing.
Yeah, and we will get to their kind of precarious position in a minute. First win over Brady as a member of the Bucs, and the times they beat him before, it was by an average margin of 21. You're dead on. They were crushing them every time, but Carolina found a way. Let's talk about the offense. 3 days after the team trades basically the offense and Christian McCaffrey, they wake up. They had their best performance of the year. What did you see? What did you like?
Yeah, so we thought that Christian McCaffrey was the offense. He was last week at 158 of the 203 yards. The rest of the team had 45, which is just not acceptable. But today, P.J. Walker looked comfortable. And he said that after the game where last week you have his head coach get fired, the guy who brought him to Carolina, the guy who traded or recruited him at Temple, and he leaves, and you're having to do this whole transition that week. And you saw they just did not trust P.J. Most of his passing attempts came behind the line of scrimmage. They didn't really ask him to throw the ball down the field. And when he did, he was inaccurate. But today, Ben McAdoo gave him some easy throws early on, got him comfortable, but really not even an easy throw on the first play of the game. That corner out to Terrace Marshall that Terrace dropped. Yeah. But it showed right out of the gate that they weren't going to do what they did last week, that they understood if we want to win games, we need to trust in our quarterback, even if he has a history of turning the football over. By far the best game that P.J. Walker played as a Carolina Panther. And hats off to the offensive line. You have Bradley Bozeman stepping in as a starting center for Pat Elflein. He went on IR on Saturday, and he was moving guys. Deontay Foreman looked like the player we saw last year in Tennessee when he was filling in for Derrick Henry. And Chuba Hubbard also made his own plays, had a touchdown run in that game as well. So P.J. slinging it, great passes, and DJ Moore getting him involved. A beautiful sideline throw to Tommy Trimble for the touchdown. There was balance, and they haven't had balance here in Carolina on the offensive side since, in a way, I guess, Teddy Bridgewater in 2020. One of the best performances that we've seen from this offensive unit in the last 2-3 seasons. It's not like they were amazing, but they were efficient for the most part.
Let's stay with P.J. Walker for a minute, because after the game, interim coach Steve Wilks basically said it's going to be hard to take P.J. out of the lineup. Now, Sam Darnold's working his way back. Baker Mayfield's working his way back. What do you think after this game they should do?
I don't know. If you had asked me this question last week, I clearly would have thought that once Baker or Sam was healthy, that's who Steve Wilks would play. They didn't show any faith in P.J. Walker a week ago, but today, like I said, they actually allowed him to do things. And he looked really good. Like the throws he had to DJ, the throw that he had to Tommy Trimble. Some of the best throws that we've seen a Carolina Panthers quarterback make this year and even last season when Sam Darnold was a primary starter. We know that Baker is not the answer here in Carolina. We know that Sam Darnold's not the answer here in Carolina. And P.J. Walker also probably not the answer in Carolina. If they play Baker and he plays 70% of the snaps, that 2024 draft pick that's in the 5th round becomes a 4th-round pick. I think we've seen enough through 5 games to where Baker Mayfield does not need to be out on the field. Like P.J. Walker, who's only had 2 weeks with first-team reps, looked better than what Baker Mayfield has done in his opportunity today. Sam Darnold, last year, complete train wreck. You do wonder what he might look like behind a competent offensive line, which Carolina has, but still not the answer. I'm totally fine riding with P.J. until he shows that he's not the best guy to give him an opportunity to win. And we've seen this defense has really rallied around P.J. Walker when he started. Back in 2020 against Detroit, shut the Lions out. Last year against the Cardinals, got multiple turnovers. Even last week in the first half, were phenomenal. And then today, excellent. So I think P.J. Walker, for the time being, should continue to be the guy here in Carolina as starting quarterback until another opportunity or someone else, Darnold or Baker, presents themselves as the best option for the Panthers to win this year.
Yeah, let's talk about that defense, because when we talk about Carolina's core players that they may or may not want to move off of, that's where they're basically embedded. In this game, they did not have Jeremy Chin or J.C. Horn, but globally, with this defense heading into next year, the way they have played, does it make a rebuild a little easier to pull off as long as you make the right call for coach and quarterback?
We saw today why you don't want to tear everything down here in Carolina. We saw today why the Panthers reportedly turned down 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns, who, congratulations, got his first sack of Tom Brady. I know a bucket list thing for him. He said that Brady got stuck in the web on Sunday in that game. So the defense is great. We've known that. They have not been great in the second half, in due part because the offense doesn't move the football, and they're out there all day, and they get tired, and the attrition in the game wears on them. But they showed once again why they're one of the best units, one of the best young defenses in the league, and why, if you can get an offense that can complement them like they had today, for the most part. Now, there was plenty of 3-and-outs, don't get me wrong, but they at least were able to move the ball a couple times and actually get in the end zone, which they have not done with any sort of consistency in the previous 6 games up until now. So, yeah, this defense, you get a quarterback, special teams have been good. I think you can obviously have a team that can compete, and they showed today. Just give you something offensively, and we can hang in there and give you an opportunity to win games.
Yeah, Carolina saying no to a package of 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns, as you mentioned. So that's probably a signal that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Who else could you see Carolina moving on from with the trade deadline approaching in about a week?
Well, I just don't really see DJ Moore being one of those guys, especially when you already took away Christian McCaffrey. I don't think you want to give up your only receiver who's really made some plays for you. He hasn't had much of an opportunity this season, but we've seen what DJ Moore's been the last couple of years and what he did today in the win against Tampa Bay. So I don't think DJ Moore's someone who should be moved. You look at Brian Burns, of course, you're not going to give up him. Jeremy Chin's on IR, so he's not on a trade block. J.C. Horn's been injured. He's not on a trade block. Shaq Thompson, I could see that. I think he has about $13 million of cap space that they could be able to get away from if they cut him in the offseason. Maybe that makes sense to try and get away from him now, especially with Frankie Louvu back. But Shaq's still one of those guys who's been a leader on your defense. So if anyone's going to get moved, it would be Shaq. But at this point in time, looking at the state of the division, which I know we're going to get into, I think I just want to roll with everybody who's on this defense, especially when you got rid of a player in Christian McCaffrey, who obviously is excellent, but at a position that does not have that much value. And you can see, as we saw today, with the two-headed monster, Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, you can get production without having to pay a guy $16 million a year to be a running back.
Yeah, this year for me, Julian, more than others recently, I don't blame fans for wanting their team to tank. I mean, they're tracking and trending towards that number 1 pick.
But they're not tanking.
And they need a quarterback. Right. They're not tanking, says Scott Fitter, because he can't say that they're tanking. So for fans that are kind of hoping the Panthers lose out or come close to it and get that first overall pick, what kind of mental gymnastics are they playing watching their team get a really feel-good win on Sunday?
Make no mistake, this is still not a good football team. They're still 2-5. Now, their 2 wins have come against the division, which we've always known is the most important wins for the team. And Steve Wilkes brought up in the press conference following the game that going into this week, they knew 3 of their next 4 games are against divisional opponents. If they can take care of business there, they can be in good position. And you look at the rest of the NFC South, not great. And we haven't had playoff football here in Charlotte since 2017. I do understand it. It's paramount the Carolina Panthers find a quarterback. I've always felt when they were building this team that they needed to focus on building the entirety of the roster, then identify the quarterback when they can. It's not like they have a ton of capital in the draft. They got 4 picks. They don't have a ton of draft picks to really use to move up potentially for a young quarterback, but it's also a crapshoot. You have no idea if C.J. Stroud of Ohio State is going to be the right guy, or Bryce Young or Will Levis out of Alabama and Kentucky, respectively. So if I'm a Panthers fan, you should be happy. Your team won a game. That rarely happens around here. So I'm not going to tell anybody how to feel, but to me it's kind of confusing how you would not be excited about the team winning. And the Hornets also won too. How often do we here in Charlotte get to celebrate a Panthers and a Hornets win on the same day?
Especially when they were both so unexpected.
Right.
Speaking of unexpected, heading into this week, the Panthers all said, hey, we're 1-0 in the division. And everybody's like, okay. Well, now they're 2-0, and they have a winnable game at Atlanta next week. I mean, do you have any more confidence? How much more confidence do you have in them actually being able to do this than you did before this weekend?
A little bit more, just because the offense looked better. It was watchable. Sometimes it wasn't. Defensively, they're great. I love what I saw in the run game. And I don't think it's too crazy to say next week we have this conversation, the Carolina Panthers are tied for the first place in the NFC South. Tampa Bay has to play against the Ravens on Thursday. Bucs team that lost to the Panthers, who they were a 13-point favorite of, and in last week to the Steelers, don't think they're beating the Ravens. New Orleans has to play the Raiders. Don't think they're going to beat the Raiders after the Raiders got to win against Houston. I don't know. If you look at it, it's possible that this could be another 2014 where 6 or 7 wins gets it done. I'm not going to say that's going to happen, but I feel a little bit more confident about this team moving forward than I did coming in. But again, it's a week-to-week league. So you can't get too high, can't get too low. But there's certainly, like Steve Wilks said, things they can build off of. That run game, what they did defensively, even special teams-wise, solid performance.
Steve Wilks has slammed on the brakes of this Panthers tank.
Yes.
Julian Council, Locked On Panthers, thanks for joining us.